Good morning, boys and girls. My name is Miss Miriam, and I'm your host, and this is your teacher, Miss Summer. Yesterday, Miss Quinn and Miss Julie taught us all about the Vikings, being raiders and traders, and their preferred ship was the longship.
Yes, I love that story. I'm Miss Summer, and today's lesson is titled Family Life. Today, we will be learning more about what daily life was like for Bjorn and his family members. Before we begin, let's look back at our chart from yesterday and quickly review what we've learned. Miss Miriam, can you share what you already know about the Vikings?
Yes, we learned that Vikings traveled to other places to trade, raid, and explore. We also learned that Vikings relied on fishing, farming, and trade for their living.
Thank you, Miss Miriam. I'm learning so much about the Vikings. Are there some new things you want to learn and you can add to our chart during today's reading?
Yes, there are actually a few things I want to learn. I want to know how farming was an important part of daily life for the Vikings. I also want to know what types of chores the Vikings did on a daily basis. I wonder if their chores were the same as the boys and girls' chores today.
I don't know, but those are some great questions, Miss Miriam. I would love to learn the answers to those questions also. But before we get started with our reading, let's begin by first discussing the meaning of some important vocabulary words that we'll reference in this lesson. Are you ready, Miss Miriam?
Oh yes, I love learning new words.
Great, let's get started. So our first word is embers. Say embers.
Embers.
Good. Embers are the glowing pieces left over from a dying fire. Let's rub our hands together as if we're standing over the embers, like in our picture. As the fire died down, the embers glowed on the ground before slowly turning into gray ash.
Oh, my hands already feel warm from these embers.
Mine too. Our next word is extracted. Say extracted.
Extracted.
Great job. Extracted is when we pull something out from something else.
Ouch! Oh, Miss Summer, please help me get this splinter out.
Oh my goodness. Hold on a minute, boys and girls. Let me help. And I happen to have these handy tweezers.
Ow! Okay, I
Did I
think
get
it's
it?
out.
Okay,
Yes,
I think I
thank you.
got it. Boys and girls, let's pinch our fingers together like this to show our word extracted. Miss Summer extracted the splinter from Miss Miriam's finger with the tweezers. Or like in our picture, the bird extracted the small fish from the pond. Our next word is interrogate. Say interrogate.
Interrogate.
Good. To interrogate is to question someone thoroughly. We're going to learn some real American Sign Language today for our motions. Are you ready? Great. The motion we will use for interrogate is to take both index fingers like this. We're going to make multiple down motions just like this. This represents question, 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 and they keep digging and poking and asking questions. Rachel's mom had to interrogate her to find out if she'd completed all of her homework. Great job, boys and girls. Our next word is livestock. Say livestock.
Livestock.
Great. Livestock are animals that are useful for farming and that can be used for food. So to help us remember this word, let's hold our pinky and our thumbs out on each hand. Put them to our temples and twist like bull horns. The farmer had livestock that helped to pull his wagon and provide meat for his family. Our next word is population. Say population.
Population.
Great. Population is the total number of people living in an area. To help us remember population, let's make the sign for the letter P just like this. With both hands. Good job. Now we're going to make circles like this, which means people. Then we're going to put our palms flat together and circle one across the top. That shows area. Let's do that one again. Area. Great job, Miss Miriam. So we're going to have people in an area. That's population. Great job. The Population of the small town was around 500. Good job, boys and girls. I think you got the hang of that one. Our final word is tunic. Say tunic.
Tunic.
Good job. A tunic is a slip-on piece of clothing that is knee-length and often belted at the waist. Very similar to the one Miss Miriam is wearing. I really like your tunic, by the way.
Thanks so much.
So, to show what a tunic is, we're going to use the motions from our shoulders. We're going to put both hands on our shoulders, and we're going to go from our shoulders down to our knees because it's long, kind of like a dress. Miss Miriam wore a lightweight tunic to the restaurant that kept her warm in the cool fall air. Good job with that word, tunic. Today we're going to listen carefully to hear more about what daily life was like for Bjorn and his family members. We will also hear quite a bit about the meals and the different types of foods Bjorn's family eats. Boys and girls, get ready to read along with us and look at the pictures on the screen as we read. Let's get started. As we crept inside the house, I could tell that almost everyone was asleep. Only my father was still awake. I could just about make out his shadowy profile as he sat on the ground near the fire, where only the glowing embers remained. "See you in the morning," whispered Tolley as he attempted to creep away into the darkness. "Boys, come here a moment," my father said in a raised whisper. He was not going to let either of us get away quite so easily. "Where have you been?" he asked as we sat down beside him. At first, neither of us responded, until finally I muttered, "At the wharf, Father." "What were you doing there?" he asked, continuing to interrogate us. "Looking at the ships," offered Tolley. "One of the warships is being readied for a raid." "Is that so?" he replied. "Tolley would like to go with them," I offered. "But not you," he said, as if he were stating a fact. I did not reply. Question time. Bjorn's father is waiting by the embers of the fire when Tolley and Bjorn return. Why does Bjorn's father interrogate them when they arrive home? I think the boys and girls already know the answer. Miss Miriam, do you know the answer?
Very good, boys and girls. Yes, it is because they are late, and Bjorn's father wants to know where they've been and what they've been doing.
Yes, that is exactly right. We all agree with you. Let's keep reading. "A warrior does not always know when he is ready to be a warrior," he said softly. "Only Odin and Tyr know that. When the time for fighting arrives, you will both be ready. Now get some sleep. You have chores to do in the morning." Tolley and I stood up and kissed my father. Then we scuttled off into the darkness of the central hall. "See you bright and early in the morning," I teased Tolley, knowing that he hated to get up before the sun had risen in the sky. I took off my woolen tunic and lay down. It felt good to rest my head upon my down pillow. I pulled my woolen blanket up around me and closed my eyes. My grandmother was always the first one to get up. Each morning before sunrise, she made porridge and bread for the entire family. Shortly after she arose, my father and mother would join her by the hearth. Mother would add logs to the embers, and father would disappear into his forge. Within minutes, Uncle Sven and my mother's brother would join my father, and the day's work would begin. The sound of the hammer hitting the anvil and the hiss of hot metal and fire were never far away. I lay in the semi-darkness listening to the early morning hustle and bustle. These were the sounds of my childhood. These were the memories that I would keep in my heart for the rest of my life. Suddenly my eyes began to water. I quickly pinched myself to stop the flow of tears. Question time. Why does Bjorn feel sad when he hears the hustle and bustle of the morning? Boys and girls, do you think you know why he's sad? Very good. Miss Miriam, do you know what the boys and girls might be thinking?
Okay, I'll share that. I think he's sad when he realizes that these are the sounds of his childhood, and now he understands that he's growing up and soon he'll be leaving home.
I think y'all are all right. Great job if you said that, boys and girls. Let's get back to our story. As the porridge simmered and the bread baked, Mother, Grandmother, and Aunt Kristen went to work in the small room behind the central hall. This was the room where sheep's wool was spun, woven on a loom, and sewn into warm clothes and blankets. Thread from flax was also woven into lighter linen garments that could be worn during the warmer months. In addition to looking after the chickens, my sister Kidda was being taught as an apprentice how to spin, weave, and sew in the same way that I was being taught how to be a blacksmith. My Aunt Kristen was perhaps one of the most skillful women in our town at using vegetable dyes from plants to color woolen and linen cloth before it was cut and sewn into garments. She explained to me once that the color blue was extracted from the woad plant, the color red was extracted from madder, and yellow was extracted from weld. We children were responsible for gathering these plants. Tolley did not work as an apprentice like me. Instead, he worked on his Uncle Eric's farm on the edge of town. There, he tended the flock of sheep that provided many of the townspeople with wool. He also cared for the herd of cattle that provided additional milk as well as meat. Although there was not a lot of it, the grain and vegetables produced in the fields were needed to feed our growing population. Even the long grass was used on the thatched roofs of our houses or to cover the interior earthen floors. Very often, in the late part of autumn, the older cattle were killed and the meat was dried. This provided much needed food in the wintertime. Tolley, Bjorn, Kidda, Arnston, and Carl, "It's time to get up," said Grandfather Affy as he shuffled toward us in the dim light. "Come on, you sleepy heads. We need more wood for the fire. And we need some eggs. Oh, and get a pitcher of goat's milk too," he ordered. I could just make out the younger children stretching and yawning. I could see that Tolley was the last one to lift his head from his pillow. I heard him yawn loudly several times and then down again. Moments later, Grandfather Affy threw one of his leather shoes at him and he fell backward out of his bed. "Come on, Tolley, let's go and chop some wood," I suggested, all while laughing at him. Tolley grunted at me by way of reply. Question time. When we look at the image of Grandfather Affy and the children, can we make a connection to mornings at our house? How? Boys and girls, what do you think? What about mornings at your house? Miss Miriam, what do you think?
Well, I can definitely make a connection. Sometimes our house may look like this in the morning. Sometimes mornings are hectic, and parents and grandparents try everything to get us out of the bed because I don't like to get up early.
Right. Even maybe like throwing a shoe like Grandfather Affy.
Yeah, that
we
might have
try
happened
not
a few
to
times.
do that. But great thinking. That's exactly right. Let's keep reading. Tolley and I worked together at chopping up the larger pieces of wood that were stored in an enclosure at the side of our house. Fortunately, our homeland had many forests that provided us with wood for our ships and homes, as well as fuel for the fires in our hearths. Wood was one of the few things we had in abundance. While we chopped wood into logs, Tolley and I discussed the journey that we would soon be taking across the great ocean to Iceland. You know, Bjorn, there are enormous sea monsters that can devour a man in one gulp. They dwell in the watery depths of the great ocean, he said quite seriously. I've heard stories about them, but I've never seen one, I replied calmly. Well, it's true, he continued. It is best to keep your spear by your side at all times, even when you're sleeping, Tolley advised me. You don't want to be caught unharmed if one rises up unexpectedly out of the waves. Question time. Why is Tolly concerned about sea monsters? Oh, I hear some of you already saying the correct answer. Miss Miriam, do you think you know why he's concerned about the sea monsters? The boys and girls gave you a hint.
Let me listen again.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, boys and girls. Okay, the boys and girls say they are getting ready to sail to Iceland, and he's heard all these myths about sea monsters that live in the sea that he's going to be traveling on.
Yes, that would be scary, wouldn't it?
Yes, oh, very scary.
Good job. Y'all are so smart. Thank you for helping Miss Miriam. Let's keep reading. I wasn't sure a spear would be much use against the creature that Tolly had described, but I nodded in agreement. An hour must have passed when we heard the sound of our grandmother's voice calling us all into breakfast. She didn't have to call any of us twice. Tolly sprinted toward the house, and I followed close behind him. We quickly washed our hands and faces in a bucket of fresh water that had been placed outside the entrance to our home. As we sat together around the hearth, Grandmother ladled porridge into wooden bowls, which she then handed to us. Mother gave each of us a wooden spoon. In addition to the hot porridge, there was fresh bread, cheese, boiled eggs, and dried herring laid out on a large wooden platter. A pitcher of warm goat's milk was placed beside the platter. Each day, Viking families come together to eat 2 meals, breakfast and dinner. Of the 2, breakfast was my favorite. At breakfast time, the older family members were less tired and therefore less grumpy. And the events of the day were still a mystery waiting to happen. I sat on the floor between Tolly and Kidda and devoured the warm porridge. When I finished my bowl of porridge, I reached for some bread and cheese and then poured goat's milk into a wooden cup. "Eat up, Bjorn," said Father, smiling at me. "Today is the day we begin to make your sword." All right, boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed our story today. Now let's see if we can remember some of the details from our story. What do you think?
Oh, I love question time, boys and girls. I hope I can get the answers right.
Oh, the boys and girls will help you. Don't worry about that. Let's get started with the first question. Although there was not a lot of it, the grain and vegetables produced in the fields were needed to feed our growing population. What does the word population mean? Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to give you 4 answer choices. I think Miss Miriam needs a little help.
Yes.
A herd of cattle, a group of people that live in one area, large fields of grain and vegetables, or a group of farmers. What do you think? Miss Miriam, what's your choice?
I need some help from the boys and girls.
Okay.
Okay, we've decided that it's a group of people that live in one area.
Exactly right.
Thanks,
Great
boys and
job,
girls.
boys and girls. Let's look at the next question. What types of chores did Vikings do on a daily basis? Boys and girls, do you remember the chores that they did? Miss Miriam, can you list some of the chores?
I sure can.
Perfect.
I know this one.
Okay.
They would spin sheep's wool and sew it into clothes and blankets. They would extract dyes from plants to color garments. They looked after farm animals, chopped wood, tended to livestock, and even learned skills like blacksmithing.
Wow, that's a lot of chores.
Definitely.
And you all were really paying attention. The next question is, why didn't Grandmother have to call anyone twice for breakfast? Boys and girls, I think I heard some of you already answered correctly. Miss Miriam, did you hear what they said?
I did.
Okay.
All right. So they had been doing chores for at least an hour, and they were getting really, really hungry by that time.
Yes, that is exactly right. I bet they were really hungry after
Yes.
all of those hard chores.
Definitely.
So how was farming an important part of daily life to the people of the Viking age? What do you think? Miss Miriam, can you help us out?
Let me talk to the boys and girls about this.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I think I've got an answer now.
Okay.
So the town sheep provided people with wool. The cattle and goats provided milk and meat. What's that? Oh, yes. Grains and vegetables were an important food source. Grass was used for roofs and floor coverings, and flax was used for clothing.
Yes, wow. That really shows farming was a very important part of their daily life.
Yes.
That's a lot to remember too, boys and girls.
That's why I needed help.
I know. So now we're going to do some word work with the word extracted. I want you to look at the screen at the word extracted. In the read aloud, you heard, "She explained to me once that the color blue was extracted from the woad plant. The color red was extracted from madder, and yellow was extracted from weld." Say extracted with me.
Extracted.
Good job. If something has been extracted, it has been drawn or pulled out. Remember me using my tweezers? I carefully extracted the splinter from Miss Miriam's finger. The man in the picture extracted the fish from the ocean on our anchor chart. Have you ever extracted something from somewhere, boys and girls? Why don't you tell me about it? Be sure to use the word extracted when you tell about it. Great job. Miss Miriam, can you give me a sentence with our word extracted?
Let's see. I know one. The man reached into his pocket and extracted a $5 bill.
Ooh, my pockets are empty, but that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's play a making choices activity. I'm going to say a sentence that includes something that may or may not have been extracted from something else. If the thing in the sentence has been extracted, say extracted, or give me a thumbs up. If the thing in the sentence was not extracted, say that was not extracted, or give me a thumbs down. Are you ready? Okay. Taking the ice cream out of the freezer. Extracted or not extracted?
I think extracted.
Excellent job. The boys and girls answered before you did, Miss Miriam. Step it
They're
up.
so quick.
Okay. What about putting the notebook in the book bag? Extracted or not extracted?
Let me see what the boys and girls are saying. Not extracted.
Okay, very good job. What about digging seashells out of the sand? Extracted or not extracted?
Oh, they've got this one already.
Yes.
Extracted.
Exactly. That was so fast. Thank you for
Yes.
helping her. Sometimes it takes her a minute. Great job, boys and girls, on your word work and learning more about the word extracted. So, Miss Miriam, let's look back at our KWL chart and see what we learned today that we can add to our chart.
Okay, so let's think about what I've learned today. Well, we learned that in autumn, older cattle were killed to provide food for wintertime.
Yes.
Oh, I know. We also learned that Viking families come together daily for both breakfast and dinner.
Yes, I think that's my favorite.
Yes, mine too.
And those are great. Thank you for sharing. Boys and girls, I heard you sharing several more. This list could go on and on. Learning about the Vikings together is so much fun.
Yes.
You've all worked so hard today on our lesson about the Viking family. You did such a great job with the vocabulary words, listening to the story, and answering all the questions. I'm so proud of you, and you should be proud too.
All rights and credits for today's lesson come from Core Knowledge Language Arts. We would like to thank Core Knowledge for publicly sharing these materials. Boys and girls, thanks for joining us today. I cannot wait to keep learning more about the Vikings with you tomorrow. See you then. Bye.